fights with passion, and he inspires.
Are you ready for a war?
All right. Welcome back to From A to Arbitration. I'm going to have another long episode. I got a lot of stuff to cover. We're going to read a lot. Y'all know I love that. But we're going to get down into some good education today. We got some more of this seatbelt stuff going on where management's watching us. And so we're going to cover a little bit more on that. And I think it'll be very informative. It'll help a lot of you out. And then we're going to get into reading again on the 6-day count. So I'm going to read again 1 hour. And eventually I'll get done with this book. And then we may read it again. A lot of people reached out. They've been helped by the book. So, you know, if 6-day count's here to stay, you can do nothing better than to educate yourself on 6-day counts, right? So first off, Mallory. I said I'm going to do this every week, and I'm going to do it. She's that important to me. Get on from8arbitration.com, and you'll see a link there to donate to Mallory, kind of like I said, her tip jar. And she's invaluable to me. And all these sites that I've got that I'm going to read for you today, she'll have those put up for you. All right? So make sure you get on there and just give her some love. You don't have to bankrupt yourself, but, you know, just give her a little love. All right? So get on from8arbitration.com and you'll see that. It'll be the first thing you see. It'll be the first thing you see when you get on there. So also the CLC. Make sure you get on concernedlettercarriers.com and they'll have a link for you there. You can follow, you can endorse, you can donate, and the more the merrier. It's going to be crunch time here coming up pretty soon. A lot of traveling. Again, we're nonprofit. You can see where every penny goes. If anybody ever says they question anything about our finances, every single bit is right there. Every single bit. All right, so the bylaws are there. Anybody saying we don't have bylaws, they're right there. And so, yeah, get on concernedlettercarriers.com, endorse, donate, whatever you can do, because we're fixing to get busy. Well, we're already busy. We're going everywhere, but it's going to get busy, okay? So anything you can do to help us out, we'd appreciate it. It's very expensive running a campaign. Anybody will tell you that. Anybody will tell you that it's very expensive. You got 2 major mailings that you have to do. That's to every city letter carrier. And so we'll be doing that. And so that's expensive because not everybody listens to From A to Arbitration. And so we need to reach every city letter carrier. James Henry's going to win the presidency in 2026. There's not a doubt in my mind. I want it to be like this TA vote. I want it to be so overwhelming for the CLC and for James Henry that it'll be a statement that they'll be talking about for the next 20 years. Okay? Change is coming to the NELC, and I can't wait. I cannot wait to be set loose on this country. And we'll talk about that a little bit probably next week, what's fixing to happen, okay? I can't wait. Also, Wednesday, I will be on Next Generation Carriers podcast. That's this Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. And they're going to ask me questions. And so y'all get on there, register. If you get on Next Generation Carriers podcast, if you look that up, and I'm going to have that up on all my sites where you, the Zoom link, so you can register to get on there. And you can ask me whatever questions you want to ask, and I'll be brutally honest. Whatever you want to ask me, I'm going to answer it. And so, and if y'all watch them with Renfro, you'll see that they don't play around. They did not let my man off the hook. They had him on there in a headlock. And so I can't wait. I love shit like that. Whatever you want to ask me. And like I said, I'll be brutally honest. The one thing you got to know about me, I will never lie. I will never, ever lie. I always keep receipts, anything I ever say. And so just know that. You ask me a question, I'm going to tell you the truth. Good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. That's just who I am. I'm not going to lie to you, all right? Going to do some shout-outs. Then I'm going to get into this seatbelt issue where management's watching us with these telematics. A lot of people have sent me stuff this week, so I'm going to talk about that. I've got some cites for you, some contractual language for you shop stewards that are like, how in the fuck are we going to beat that? So I've got all that for you. And then I'm going to cuss Barner out, and then we'll get into the 6-day count, okay? And so I'm going to go to these shout-outs. I got them on my phone, and that's just the best way I can do that. And I don't know if I've done this one or not. Usually I delete all the ones that I do so I don't do them again. I can't remember if I did this one or not. So I'm going to do it again just in case. Give a shout out, please, to our great union steward, Chris Alvarez of Branch 32, Bridgeport, Connecticut. I'd appreciate it. I've been employed at the Postal Service for 28 years, and Chris is definitely by far the best steward we have had. He's a no bullshit steward. He files grievances daily, and he knows his stuff. Learns a bit from me, too. And so he doesn't get the recognition he really deserves, but I know he listens to your show. Keep up the good work. Absolutely. Absolutely. We need so many more just like this. We need so many more just like this. And they're coming. They're coming. I'm going to make sure that this country's educated. I'll probably talk about that Wednesday if they ask me my plan. I don't know what they're going to ask me, but I'll talk about that, kind of the plan. But I'll read this again. Give a shout out to our great union steward, Chris Alvarez of Branch 32, Bridgeport, Connecticut. I'd appreciate it. I've been employed in the Postal Service for 28 years, and Chris is definitely by far the best steward we have had. Now that's saying something. Here's a gentleman 28 years, tenured, and saying that this gentleman, Chris Alvarez, is the best he's had. That's amazing. So good for you, Mr. Alvarez. Keep kicking that ass, and people are showing you love. Like I've always said, shop steward's the most thankless job you can have. Well, really any position. Formal A, advocate, DRT, it's a thankless job. It's a thankless job. So there's you some love, my friend. Hey, Corey, I know you said you would promote postal podcasts. Yes, I will. I think there should be 1 million. I think every region should have one. I think every branch should have one. I think our national should have one. Now, they've got that, whatever they do, that comes out every so often when they come out and want to lie to everybody. But I do. I think every region should have a podcast. Educating your region on what's going on, what's happening. I know that when I get my position at national, every Tuesday I'm going to have a Zoom. Every Tuesday I'm going to have a Zoom meeting letting you know what's going on. That's every week. Because I want you to know what's going on. You're paying me, right? That's your dues money. And so you need to know what's going on. We work for you. You don't work for us. And so, yeah, every Tuesday I'm going to do that. And I'm still going to do this podcast every Sunday. And that's a promise. So anyway, yeah, I got off on something there, didn't I? Nashville has Corey Walton. New York has Richie Ray. Illinois has Mailman Nick. Can you please give a shout out to Mailman Nick Venti and his YouTube podcast that is called Mailman Nick? He is raw and real and very relatable to all letter carriers. Please check out his show, everyone. So there you go. Says, I know you said you would promote postal podcasts. Nashville has Corey Walton. New York has Richie Ray. And Illinois has Mailman Nick. Can you please give a shout out to Mailman Nick Venti and his YouTube podcast that is called Mailman Nick? He is raw and real and very relatable to all letter carriers. Please check out his show, everyone. So there you go. Y'all go check out Mailman Nick, his YouTube channel. All right. I think there should be 1,000 of them, like I said. You can't educate enough. You can't vent enough. You can't rise up enough right now. We need much more of it to get people educated about the dire situation that the city letter carrier is in. We're as a dire situation as I've ever seen it, from all sides. Our union sucks right now. Our leadership is piss poor at best. The Postal Service has lost its fucking mind. They're attacking us like crazy. We don't know how to respond. We got cowards in positions of power, and we got an administration now that you're kind of wondering what in the hell's going on. So the city letter carrier is in disarray. We have united ourselves together. You saw that with this TA. The city letter carrier has stood up right? We've dusted ourselves off, and we're saying we're not going to take this shit anymore. So a lot more podcasts need to come out right now. People are wanting to hear people vent. They're wanting to vent, and they need that voice for somebody to say, hey, I get it. I'm a letter carrier. I'm going to be delivering mail tomorrow. I've been doing it 32 years. I get it. I live it. I walk around every day. And so, yeah, we need many more people to stand up and say we're not going to fucking take it anymore. And so here's one. I need a shout out given to Travis Albert, Vice President of Branch 2, Milwaukee. He's a fighter and takes no shit. The branch wouldn't be where they are today if he didn't agree to be my VP. And that's from Rob Kozier. But and if you know Rob, that dude's a damn beast. The president of Branch 2. You talking about somebody that takes no shit. That dude takes, and he don't give a fuck what people think about him. Him and I are the same. You got old business agents that try to rise up on him for things he does. This motherfucker don't do nothing but kick management in the ass and support his carriers and love his carriers. And so you have the old heads, the old administration. You don't know how they do. They're all crotchety and shit and trying to get in your business. Rob gives no shits. So I love that guy too, man. If you see him, he's as mild-mannered to you as he can be, gives no shits. And so, yeah, I'm going to read that again. I need a shout-out given to Travis Albert, Vice President of Branch 2, Milwaukee. He's a fighter and takes no shit. The branch wouldn't be where they are today if he didn't agree to be my VP. So, Travis Albert, there you go, my man. Getting some love from your president, who is an absolute fucking monster. All right, now, that's the shout-outs. Had the day of action today, the Hell No rallies. It looked like that was a great success. You see it on social media. It looked like that was a very good thing. We'll have some more day of actions coming up where we're going to call Congress, and we'll keep doing those periodically, all right, just to let them know we're still here. But those are always a good thing. Anytime the public is made aware of our plight, that's a good day. And so good for y'all that went out there. There's a bunch of people out in the streets. And so it looked like all that was a success. And like I said, the CLC from 8 Arbitration, we'll get together and we'll do another day of action just to let Congress know, hey, we're watching you. We see you, okay? And don't forget about us. I still think we need to do a commercial, a 30-second. I think last week I said a 30-minute, a 30-second commercial, and put it on. You should have put it on March Madness. You should have paid the money to put it on there because a lot of people are watching that. We're behind the times. We're stupid as fuck at our national level, especially the top two dumbasses. But I think we should have done that. And that's something we will do, okay? Because I was on a thing on Facebook today, and it was kind of a national thing talking about the post office, and people were like, lost $9 billion of my money, of taxpayers' money. They need to do away with it. That's the uneducation of the public. Legitimately, half the country thinks that we receive tax money, that it's their tax dollars paying our salaries. And so we don't do anything as a union to let them know that's not the case. We need to do that. That would be very wise on our part. And to let people know what we do, who we are. The people love us, but, you have some out there that are uneducated. So anyway, we're idiots as far as that's concerned. I'm going to talk about this telematics. A lot of stuff I'm going to talk about, okay? Because a lot of people have sent me things. Here's one that says, here's my statement so I don't forget today. About 8:30 a.m., so-and-so is threatening carriers that telematics is watching us to wear seatbelts and threatening that you will be placed on discipline. Now, these are managers doing that. And there's a lot more. Here's some more shit. Stand-up talks are given, and management stated that they have been told to EP and issue removals. I said on those telematics, and it says, yes, it's been monitored by all districts, daily telecoms. It shows each office, which vehicle, everything. They're requiring management to attach each vehicle with the route it belongs to. And it says, so they're telling them in the stand-up talks that they're going to be putting people on EP and issue removals now for seatbelts. And they've weaponized that, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit when we talk about management saying that we're weaponizing the cease and desist. They're weaponizing this now. They take everything and weaponize it. I had somebody message me the other day, said they had been out for 3 weeks because management stated that they didn't have a seatbelt. 3 weeks this person has been on EP because management said they weren't wearing a seatbelt. Let me ask you something. What's the emergency on the next day? If you're saying it's an emergency situation, which it's not, they've bastardized the shit out of that. But you're going to say that you saw me, or this telematics has seen me, or whatever, or these safety teams have come out directed by headquarters to come out and catch us, and you're saying we're not wearing a seatbelt. What's the emergency the next day? What's the emergency 3 weeks later? They are weaponizing that and punishing us for that. I'll talk about that in a second. But this individual sent me this. It's called Driver Seatbelt Exceptions 14-Day Trend. So they're always going to have these analytics. And they spent millions of dollars on this stuff. Now, these are those telematics devices, right, on the mattresses and whatever else. And so we were told that it was for VMF finding and locating disabled vehicles that are broken down. It also keeps up with vehicles if they need maintenance, lets them know which vehicles need maintenance. We were never told, I don't know if Renfro was told, he don't communicate anything with us. He talks to his handlers. And so, and Barner, he ain't told nothing to us either. Both of them motherfuckers are worthless as shit. And so here we are, we're having to do everything right here on a fucking podcast because they don't tell us a fucking thing. Our business agents don't send out anything. They're letting us do all this shit by ourselves, walking into this shit. What good is our union right now? What good are those two dumb fucks at the top? What good are our business agents right now, the agent for us? When they said these telematics, first off, I would have filed a national level grievance on the telematics. I would have just filed one. Renfro probably said we didn't see one. We didn't think we could win one. We've gotten into such a habit of we don't think we can win. When did that become a thing? You fight, regardless. You fucking fight. We're so worried about we may lose. We may not win that. There's a possibility. Yes, every arbitration, there's a possibility we may lose. But they're already doing it. Who gives a fuck if we lose? They're already doing it to us. They're ransacking the city letter carrier craft right now, and our agent has their head up their ass. We may lose that. Yeah, we may. But you know what? They're doing it right now. We got people who've been off the clock for 3 fucking weeks. Who cares if we lose it? To me, you're spying on us and you're using covert techniques off a telematics device that we were told was for a VMF. Have they taken that and bastardizing that? And since they've done that, now they've violated our national agreement by Article 19 via Section 134 of the M39 Handbook. I think we could be persuasive in that. But here you have this analytics called Driver Seatbelt Exceptions 14-Day Trends. It tells you the vehicle, it tells you the place, it tells you the station, and the percentage of times you had it on and off. And so it tells all these things. I'm looking at it right here. And so, yeah, these things are sent down. Now listen to me here. This is critical. Okay, this is critical. Local management does not have access to this. This comes from their boss. Local management does not have access to this. That's what I've been told. So if you go request this from management, I'll talk about that in a second. Because I got some questions for you to ask. Okay? So here you have management threatening us with discipline. All right? They're threatening us with discipline because they're saying that these telematics, whoever is watching us, and it's able to show that we're not wearing our seatbelt, what percentage we're not wearing our seatbelt. So I guess it's during delivery we're not wearing our seatbelt. Okay, now, one of the problems I have with that is if you say, is there a rule? Now we're going to get into some shit right here. So if you want to get a pen and paper, I'm going to cover a lot of stuff, okay? Is there a rule? If so, was the employee aware of the rule? What is the rule? We must wear a seatbelt at all times. Is that a rule? That's the first thing we have to consider. Is that a rule? How have we been taught? Okay, here's how I've been taught. And I'm going to read two things to you. The first one is M1298. M1298. All right, so let's get that, M1298, because we're going to talk about, is there a rule? Right, that's the first thing. That's the first sub-question of just cause. Is there a rule? So M1298, it states in part, seatbelts must be worn at all times the vehicle is in motion. Exception for long life vehicles, now that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about mattresses, right? And all these other vehicles. Exceptions for long life vehicles. In instances when the shoulder belt prevents the driver from reaching to provide delivery or collection from curbside mailboxes, only the shoulder belt may be unfastened. The lap belt must remain fastened at all times the vehicle is in motion. Okay, I'm going to read that again. Seatbelts must be worn at all times the vehicle is in motion, exception for long life vehicles. In instances when the shoulder belt prevents the driver from reaching to provide delivery or collection from curbside mailboxes, only the shoulder belt may be unfastened. The lap belt must remain fastened at all times the vehicle is in motion. Here's something else. This is M41 Section 8. Vehicle regulations and safety practices. 812 safety practices. 812.3.1. 812.3. Seatbelts must be worn at all times the vehicle is in motion. Exceptions for long life vehicles. In instances when the shoulder belt prevents the driver from reaching to provide delivery or collection from curbside mailboxes, only the shoulder belt may be unfastened. The lap belt must remain fastened at all times the vehicle is in motion. Now, what's the issue we have with that? In these new mattresses, in these new vans, we have no lap belt. There is no disconnect. We're wearing a seat belt across our neck when we're delivering. You're going to reach to the left, that seat belt is across your neck. You're going to come to the right to put the mail in the box, reach out to put, and that seat belt is across your neck. To me, the Postal Service and the union should have gotten together and said, hey, that could be a safety issue, that we're going to have a carrier with 600, 700, 800, 900, 1,000, 1,200 stops and a seat belt running across their neck for 1,200 stops. You go to the left, that seat belt's rubbing on that neck. You come to the right, that seat belt's rubbing on that neck. Right? And so we don't have the availability or the opportunity that the FFE does where you can take off that shoulder belt and just wear the lap belt. How I've been trained is you wear the lap belt during delivery. We cannot do that. We cannot do that with these new vans. It does not give us that option. To me, it's a safety issue. Should have filed a 1767 on it, saying, hey, that belt, it runs across my neck for 1,200 stops. I don't know what's going to happen in 5 years with that, 6 years, 10 years, 20 years with that constantly on my neck. To me, the union should have said, y'all need to do something about that. But now management has found them something, right? Because if I'm in a FFV, I'll have that lap belt on, and you'll never show that I don't have a seatbelt on. You'll never show it. Now they've got you something, though. They're on this mattress. We don't have that opportunity. So what are they going to say? Go out there and put them on emergency placement for having that belt off. Put them on removal for having that belt off, even though they didn't see us. Go out there and do that because they got them a little something now. We don't have the capability of wearing just the lap belt like that step 4 said, like that contractual language said. So they got them a little something now. So they're beating the shit out of that like they always do. They're coming out there on the street, fucking with us. They're taking us in the office, fucking with us. Because why? We don't have the opportunity to wear a lap belt. But if they take me in the office, what I'm going to say is, what I'll always say is, I always wear my seatbelt. I always wear my seatbelt. So if they're going to say, is there a rule? What are they going to say? Seatbelts must be worn at all times, right? You're going to have to prove that I was not wearing a seatbelt. If you say these telematics showed that you weren't wearing a seatbelt, to me that's a violation of 134 of the M39 handbook. You're going to have to come out there and see me not wearing it. When you say, was a thorough investigation completed? I'm going to read this. Before administering the discipline, management must make an investigation to determine whether the employee committed the offense. Now, if they're telling me in a stand-up talk that these telematics are showing that I'm not wearing a seatbelt, so therefore I'm going to be put on emergency placement and I'm going to be put on a removal, you have predetermined my discipline without a thorough investigation completed. I would get statements from every carrier in that station where that stand-up talk took place. I'd get a statement from every carrier and I would keep those. Any discipline issued, and I don't care if it's a letter of warning, any discipline issued, I'd put every one of those statements in that file showing management had predetermined discipline before my day in court. Before I had an opportunity to address the charges management was bringing against me, they had predetermined my guilt. Because in the stand-up, they said that they're watching us covertly with these telematics, and they're going to issue me discipline. So therefore, that's a violation of that sub-question of just cause. Was a thorough investigation completed? I'll read it again. Before administering the discipline, management must make an investigation to determine whether the employee committed the offense. If they're telling you in a stand-up talk that they're going to issue you discipline, and I've not been given my day in court, an investigation, to me that's a violation of that sub-question of just cause. Was the severity of the discipline reasonably related to the infraction itself and in line with that usually administered, as well as to the seriousness of the employee's past record? The following is an example of what arbitrators may consider an inequitable discipline. Now it says, was the severity of the discipline reasonably related to the infraction itself? If you say that you're going to issue me a removal for an allegation of not wearing my seatbelt, because that's all it is, it's an allegation. You're going to issue me a removal for an allegation of not wearing my seatbelt, that's a violation of that sub-question of just cause. Was the severity of the discipline reasonably related to the infraction itself? No, it wasn't. First off, you don't know that I wasn't doing it. And secondly, you're issuing me a removal on an allegation. No arbitrator in the country is going to stand for that. If you say that you're going to issue me a removal, and I had no discipline, on page 16.2, corrective rather than punitive. This is for you shop stewards that are wondering what you're going to do. I'm telling you. Corrective rather than punitive. The requirement that discipline be corrective rather than punitive is an essential element of the just cause principle. In short, it means that for most offenses, management must issue discipline in a progressive fashion, issuing lesser discipline, e.g. a letter of warning for a first offense, and a pattern of increasingly severe discipline for succeeding offenses, e.g. short suspension, long suspension, discharge. The basis of this principle of corrective or progressive discipline is that it is issued for the purpose of correcting or improving employee behavior and is not as punishment or retribution. So when you tell me that district is telling managers to give us a stand-up talk saying you're going to be put on emergency placement, you predetermined that, okay? And you're going to issue removal. It's a violation of that section of 16.2, right? Corrective rather than punitive. If you look at examples of behavior on page 16.3, Article 16.1 states several examples of misconduct which may constitute just cause for discipline. Some managers have mistakenly believed that because these behaviors are specifically listed in the contract, any discipline of employees for such behavior is automatically for just cause. The parties agree these behaviors are intended as examples only. Management must still meet the requisite burden of proof, e.g. prove that the behavior took place. Now, how are they going to do that? So I'll read that again. Management must still meet the requisite burden of proof, e.g. prove that the behavior took place. So how are they going to be able to prove that the behavior took place? Now, that word prove is what we're going to focus on, okay? So when you say that management must prove that the behavior took place, they cannot prove that the behavior took place. It's an allegation. They can assume that the behavior took place, right? But assumptions and guesses and conjecture and all those things, as the old Defenses to Discipline book said, that's not evidence. You can guess that I didn't. You can assume that I didn't, but you cannot prove that I didn't. And so that's a good contention for us. Again, that's on page 16, 3 examples of behavior. Management must still meet the requisite burden of proof. That requisite means required. Required burden of proof. So they're requiring you to prove that the behavior took place. You can't. That it was intentional. And that the degree of discipline imposed was corrective rather than punitive, and so forth. So you talk about corrective rather than punitive. And we've talked about this a couple of years ago when I first started this podcast. Corrective rather than punitive. You cannot be punitive with us, and arbitrators won't tolerate it. So when you come out and you say, hey, if you're not wearing your seatbelt, you're going to be put on emergency placement, that's punitive. If you keep me off for 3 weeks, that's punitive. You turn that into a punitive emergency placement. If you say that you're going to issue me a removal, if that's the standard operating procedure, is that any violation based off of telematics is a removal, then that's a violation of numerous provisions in our handbooks and manuals, right? And this is one of them. That the degree of discipline imposed was corrective rather than punitive. That's a violation of that, because you're obviously punitive with me. How about the very first sentence of Article 16? In the administration of this article, a basic principle shall be that discipline should be corrective in nature rather than punitive. That's the very first sentence of Article 16. You know what that means? Management can't be punitive with us. As bad as they want to be, as much as they hate us, even though district and area and headquarters is telling them to put us on removal, even though all those things, they cannot usurp the language of Article 16. It's clear as day. In the administration of this article, a basic principle shall be that discipline should be corrective in nature rather than punitive. How about Section 115 of the M39 Handbook? The very first sentence. Very first sentence, what does it state? Basic principle. In the administration of discipline, a basic principle must be that discipline should be corrective in nature rather than punitive. I'll read that again. This is Management's Handbook M39. In the administration of discipline, a basic principle must be that discipline should be corrective in nature rather than punitive. That's the very first sentence of Section 115, which is titled Discipline. So management has understood. They've adopted the language out of Article 16. You also have an entire section of Article 16, which is corrective rather than punitive. And then you have another on 16.3 that talks about you must be corrective rather than punitive. So there's a very wide emphasis on corrective rather than punitive. So if anybody comes out in a stand-up talk and says, hey, if you do anything, it's going to be removal, that's a violation of that if they issue that removal. If they issue any discipline, I'm going to say that it should be corrective in nature rather than punitive. And if you can't prove anything that I've done, I'm going to say that that's punitive. If management comes out in a stand-up talk and says, hey, based off these telematics, if I get a report saying that you're not wearing your seatbelt, I'm going to put you on emergency placement and then I'm going to issue a removal, I'm filing a Section 115.4 of the M39 Handbook on that manager. You're not going to threaten me. You're just not. They can say, hey, I'm just making you aware. That's what a 16.2 discussion's for. We do that in private. You're not going to threaten an entire station with discipline. I'm going to file a Section 115.4 of the M39 Handbook failing to maintain a mutual respect atmosphere when they came out and threatened an entire station. Okay? So a lot of shit right there. I'm going to read some cites to you. But when you get discipline, if they try to issue discipline, we know that local management, they cannot pull up telematics. That's what I've been told. That comes from district. And so how are you looking that up? That's one of the questions I'm going to ask management. local management. How are you finding that? How are you looking that up? Well, it's sent to us. Well, who's sending it to you? And I want all email communications from that party. That's what I want. I want all email communications from that party, because if they're sending it via email, right? So I want all email communications with that party. I want the 4584s. Anytime we're dealing with street, I want the 4584 where they've gone out there. We're going to ask them if they physically saw the city letter carrier. No, they didn't. How do you know for certain that the carrier was not wearing their seatbelt? How do you know for certain that they were not wearing their seatbelt? And then we're going to address 134 of the M39 handbook. But I got a few sites I'm going to read to you, and Mallory's going to put these up for me on formatearbitration.com. And the first one is my favorite. It's my favorite site talking about corrective rather than punitive. And I read this on the episode a long time ago, but it's from arbitrator Cohen. It's from arbitrator Gerald Cohen. It's going to start on page 9. This is what he says. The issue which now remains to be determined, an issue which was recognized as such by the Postal Service, is that of whether grievance infraction merited discharge. And that's what management is saying if they're telling you that district is telling them to remove you for a seatbelt violation, okay? Is that whether the grievance infraction merited discharge or whether she should have been given some lesser penalty. Grievance supervisor was asked if he had considered a lesser penalty. He replied that he had, and had decided against it on the grounds that he felt it would have no impact. The action of the supervisor in this regard is a violation of Article 16, Section 1 of the National Agreement. The first sentence of this article states, in the administration of this article, a basic principle shall be that discipline should be corrective in nature rather than punitive. It has been held many times by other arbitrators that for discipline to be corrective, it must be progressive. This directive from the National Agreement is mandatory. It is not discretionary, and that's my favorite language. When you're talking about the first sentence of Article 16, we just read that. This is what he said. It has been held many times by other arbitrators that for discipline to be corrective, it must be progressive. This directive from the National Agreement is mandatory. It is not discretionary. When you think of words like shall and must, those are mandates, right? So it says it's mandatory. It's not discretionary. Management does not have the choice as to whether it will issue corrective discipline or not. It must attempt to make discipline corrective. Here, grievance supervisor decided for reasons which appeared to him to be valid that corrective discipline would be useless. He does not, however, have that discretion. He must attempt to issue corrective discipline even though he believes that it will be of no use. And so that's arbitrator Cohen. It's 557. And like I said, Mallory will have these up on formatearbitration.com. This will help you. Now here's some that I'm going to use. Anytime upper management gives a mandate to lower management to issue discipline. Anytime it takes that authority away from the supervisor. Somebody asked me about this the other day, about where does it state immediate supervisor? And I was trying to help them out. Anytime you have that, anytime you have upper management, labor, a postmaster, district, headquarters, when they're coming out with these things about put people on emergency placement, when you're talking about when you find them, call the supervisor, make sure they put them on emergency placement. Anytime you take away the supervisor's authority, we're going to have an issue with that. And arbitrators have an issue with that as well. So I've got some of my favorite sites that I use on these arguments in arbitration, because management is trying to circumvent Article 16 with how they're handling these telematics. When they say, issue them a removal, issue them an EP, have stand-up talks, issuing these discipline, okay? They're circumventing the provisions of Article 16 and Section 115 of the M39 handbook. The first one is from arbitrator Britton, and it's 01469. 01469. And this starts at page 10. As read by the arbitrator, both Step 1A and B of Section 2 of Article 15, entitled Grievance Arbitration Procedure, are couched in express mandatory language. Specifically, Step 1A requires that any employee who feels aggrieved must discuss the grievance with his immediate supervisor within a designated time period. Step 1B provides in relevant part that in any such discussion, the supervisor shall have authority to settle the grievance. Now, Article 15 is going to become critical when upper management is telling lower management what to do. When they're saying, hey, you need to issue them a removal. You need to issue them an emergency placement. Management at the local level does not have access to telematics, so that must be coming from somebody else. And what are they telling them? Here's these carriers. Here's the vehicle. Here's the route. Here's the station. Make sure you're putting them on emergency placement. Make sure you're moving them. Okay? So, and when you look up the telematics, it talks about the issues that they're having with those things. That the seatbelt fasteners, if they're not properly done, will show that the seatbelt's not working. That's the reason we need to make sure that we're making these arguments. As a matter of fact, there's an email that was sent to me where local management is saying, hey, make sure all the mattresses and all those are sent down to the VMF to make sure these seatbelt fasteners are working properly. And so they're acknowledging that they're not 100% correct, but yet they're going to issue emergency placements and removals to us based off of that anyway. So anyway, he goes on, proper compliance by management with these terms of the agreement was, however, seemingly not achieved. Further record indicates that while the appropriate representative met at Step 1, substantial doubt nevertheless exists as to the authority of the supervisor to settle the grievance. Now that's huge language when we're talking about upper management telling lower management what to do. If upper management's given a directive, we want discipline. We want them put on emergency placement. When you have something coming from headquarters talking about we want them put on emergency placement, wait until they're put on emergency placement. When you have somebody saying, hey, these individuals need to be disciplined, they need to be removed, he's saying this, substantial doubt nevertheless exists as to the authority of the supervisor to settle the grievance. And that's what I'm going to say. Here's a slideshow, a PowerPoint where they're saying, go out there, find them, hold them, take their keys, call local management, and wait until they're put on emergency placement. What authority does the supervisor have to settle the grievance? I'm going to say none, because they were told what to do. They're not going to go against their bosses. And I've got a cite for that too. In this regard, this testimony demonstrates, as evidenced by the admission of the postmaster under cross-examination, that he initiated the suspension, that the supervisor at Step 1 did not have the authority to settle the grievance without consulting him. This failure of management to comply with the prescribed language of Article 15, Section 2, Step 1A and B of the agreement, which clearly bestows upon grievance supervisor the authority to settle the grievance, cannot properly be viewed as harmless error and non-prejudicial to the rights of the grievant. To the contrary, in the considered judgment of the arbitrator, this failure goes to the very heart of the grievance process, in that the grievant is thereby denied the contractual right to have his grievance considered independently and objectively at the outset of the grievance procedure by his supervisor, who is generally most familiar with his work record. And so that's beautiful. That's as good as language as you can get. I'll read that last part again. To the contrary, in the considered judgment of this arbitrator, this failure goes to the very heart of the grievance process, and that the grievant is thereby denied the contractual right to have his grievance considered independently and objectively. If upper management is telling me what to do, how can you say that they had independent judgment and that their judgment was objective? You can't. They were told what to do. At the outset of the grievance procedure by his supervisor, who is generally most familiar with his work record, any removal of the supervisor's authority to settle the grievance, it seems to this arbitrator, is violative of the letter and spirit of the agreement and renders the Step 1 procedure little more than a charade. I'll read that again. Any removal of the supervisor's authority. Now, when you talk about headquarters sending down mandates, sending down PowerPoints from three goofballs saying, here's the standard operating procedure. We're going to send these teams out nationwide starting in December. And you're going to go out there and you're going to try to catch somebody not wearing their seatbelt. When they don't have their seatbelt on and you pull them over, get their keys from them. And then you're going to call local management, and you're going to have local management come out there, and you're going to stay there until they're put on emergency placement. If you wouldn't have said that, you might have a case. But when you say wait until they're put on emergency placement, you're telling me, you're telling the carrier, you're telling labor, you're telling an arbitrator that your plan is to put them on emergency placement, or else you wouldn't have said that. And so this right here is perfect. Any removal of the supervisor's authority to settle the grievance, it seems to the arbitrator, is violative of the letter and spirit of the agreement and renders the step one procedure little more than a charade. Accordingly, the arbitrator finds the assertion by the employee that the agreement was not denied due process to be without persuasive merit. Here's another good one for you advocates. If the union doesn't raise this procedural due process violation at the lower steps, if you get this case and you're like, that's a violation of due process, because a lot of smaller stations, they don't know to raise that argument. They've not been educated like that. They don't understand Article 15 that you take away the supervisor's authority as a due process violation. A lot of times the advocate will get those cases and they're like, man, we missed a huge argument right there. This is a good site for you because he talks about that. Management raises that issue at the arbitration. It says the employer's further contention as to the absence of notice of such procedural issues and the lack of an opportunity to respond at steps 1, 2, and 3 of the grievance procedure is found equally unmeritorious. For matters so basic and fundamental to procedural due process as those herein above described are not waived or lost by the absence of notice or lack of opportunity to rebut their validity. I'm going to read that again because we're raising a procedural due process violation for the first time at arbitration. Some arbitrators will go for that, some will not. Here's a great site for you if you're having to raise procedural due process violations for the first time at arbitration. He says the employer's further contention as to the absence of notice of such procedural issues and the lack of an opportunity to respond at steps 1, 2, and 3 of the grievance procedure is found equally unmeritorious. For matters so basic and fundamental to procedural due process as those herein above described are not waived or lost by the absence of notice or lack of opportunity to rebut the validity. Nor, for similar reasons, does the arbitrator find that the position of the employer to be advanced by reference to Article 15, Section 2, Step 2D of the grievance procedure. While the employer points out that this provision requires full development of facts and contentions at Step 2, it seemingly overlooks that the emphasis thereof is on cooperation by the parties' representatives in the development of all necessary facts, i.e. disclosure, and does not necessarily encompass matters involving procedural due process as in the case at hand. And so that's a fantastic site, first off, because you took away the supervisor's authority, their judgment. Most arbitrators won't tolerate that. And then you raised a procedural due process union at the first time at arbitration, but being as you don't lose the right to procedural due process, that follows you from the very beginning to the very end. I never lose my right to due process. I have that all the way through the arbitration hearing. And the arbitrator agreed with that. He says, hey, you raised an issue for the first time at arbitration, but it's dealing with the grievance rights to due process. Now, if I have a right to due process, when does that right end? It never ends. Why? Because it's my right. That's what that means. It's my right. So if I have a right to something, that means I carry it with me all the way through that hearing. And so if I raise it for the first time, he says, hey, you don't lose it. You continue to have that right, even if it wasn't raised before this arbitration. Here's the second one. This is Harry Goodenberg. And this is C31861. 31861. We're going to talk about page 9. The allegations of the bargaining agent that management violated the provisions of the national agreement and the grievance due process rights by having the postmaster rather than the grievance immediate supervisor handle and issue all the disciplinary action in this case are most troubling. Article 16, Section 8, Review of Discipline states, in no case may a supervisor impose suspension or discharge upon an employee unless the proposed disciplinary action by the supervisor has first been reviewed and concurred in by the installation head or designee. During his testimony, the postmaster explained the Warren Post Office had less than 20 employees. While the postmaster testified he had concurrence for the removal action, the notice of removal signed by the postmaster did not include any signature of a concurring official, and there was no other evidence presented or included in the record of any concurring official. During his testimony, the postmaster said he ran the office floor in the AM and was the immediate supervisor of the grievance since Warren was a small post office. The record supported the allegations of the union that the postmaster then had another supervisor indicate that he and not the postmaster was the grievance immediate supervisor. While it is accepted that in a small office both the supervisor and postmaster interacts and supervises and manages employees, when considering severe discipline, including removal action against an employee, the language of Article 16, Section 8, negotiated by the parties in the National Agreement, must be given its meaning and consideration. The Joint Contract Administration Manual, JCAM, in its discussion of Article 15, Informal Step A, includes the following language. While either representative at Informal Step A may consult with higher levels of management or the union on an issue in dispute, this section establishes that the parties to the initial discussion of agreements retain independent authority to settle the dispute. The union claims this language cannot be followed in this dispute when the supervisor's authority was usurped by the postmaster, and no matter the testimony of the parties, the reality of the issuance of the discipline made the independent authority of the supervisor meaningless. That's critical. Why? Because you're having emails sent from district, from area, from headquarters. Issue EP, issue discipline, issue the removal. You're taking away the immediate supervisor's authority. And as he said, the dispute when the supervisor's authority was usurped by the postmaster, and no matter the testimony of the parties, the reality of the issuance of the discipline made the independent authority of the supervisor meaningless. Again, that's a fantastic site for what we're dealing with here. Upper management is sending down these telematics, these screens or whatever, to local management, telling them, hey, put them on emergency placement and issue discipline. When that happens, you're usurping the supervisor's authority as prescribed in Article 15 and in Article 16. We'll always make that argument, okay? Here's another one. This is from Arbitrator Dworkin, and this is 4679, 04679. We're going to start on page 7. From the employer's point of view, the postmaster's testimony was unfortunate. The comment that she concurred in the discipline was probably a misstatement brought about by pressure of the moment. The arbitration form was unfamiliar to her, and cross-examination was a new experience. Certainly, that single statement cannot be the sole premise for a determination that the decision was not the postmaster's. However, the record confirms that what she said was in concert with the facts. The decision to discharge grievance was not made at the local level. It was made by labor relations officers at the MCS. I'll read that again. However, the record confirms that what she said was in concert with the facts. The decision to discharge grievance was not made at the local level. It was made by labor relations officers at the MCS. That's exactly what we're talking about here. We have PowerPoints. We got a slideshow, whatever that thing was that I put on the episode. 3 goofballs at headquarters saying, this is the SOP. Put carriers on emergency placement. When these teams come out, have the supervisor come out, stay with them until they're put on emergency placement, contact labor, have them write up the emergency placement letter. They're doing all the work of the supervisor. Now you have these telematics. Area, district are sending down mandates. Hey, here's the telematics. You don't have access to it. Here it is. Put them on EP, put them on removal. Okay, so when they do that, they're taking away the authority of the supervisor. And that's what it says. However, the record confirms that what she said was in concert with the facts. The decision to discharge grievance was not made at the local level. It was made by labor relations officers at the MCS. It is clear that the postmaster exercised no independent judgment. When she signed the disciplinary notices, she was following instructions. The evidence does not even suggest that she had or believed she had authority to do anything contrary to MCS directions. She was told that grievance had to be removed, and from then on the decision was no longer hers. Does that sound familiar? Article 16, Section 6 of the agreement requires discipline to be proposed by lower-level supervision and concurred in by higher-level authority. The requirement was omitted in this instance. The remaining question is whether the technical omission was fatal to the Postal Service's attempt to protect itself and the public against a thief. The union argues that it bargained for a two-step procedure which includes both a lower-level proposal and higher-level concurrence before discipline may be imposed. It maintains that the employer's failure to follow the contractual mandate breached grievance substantive due process entitlement and nullified the discipline. The union submitted several prior arbitral decisions in support of its position. One was issued by arbitrator Fred Hawley in a dispute between the Metairie, Louisiana Post Office and the National Association of Letter Carriers. In that case, the union alleged that several procedural defects, including lack of concurrence, called for overturning a discharge. Arbitrator Hawley was not absolute in his statement that such defects are necessarily fatal to discipline. What he did say was that the parties did not have the right to bypass or ignore contractually prescribed procedures, and that agreements will be sustained on such grounds if contractual omissions prove prejudicial to an aggrieved employee. A decision by arbitrator Nicholas Zuma contains what is perhaps the clearest, least equivocal statement of the principle relied upon by the union. The dispute stemmed from the removal of a rural letter carrier in the Fleetwood, Pennsylvania post office when postal customers accused the employee of sexual harassment. The local postmaster did not know how to proceed, so he contacted the Lancaster, Pennsylvania MCS. The MCS took over. It drafted a notice of removal and instructed the postmaster to issue it to the employee. Does that sound familiar? Arbitrator Zuma's findings of facts highlighted the postmaster's lack of participation in the removal decision. He states the local postmaster testified that he had made no decision or recommendation to terminate grievance. His superiors at the Lancaster MCS did not, according to the postmaster, ask him what he thought about the case, but he agreed later with their decision to terminate. Arbitrator Zumas concentrated on Article 16, Section 6 of the agreement when he held to be a guarantee of due process in discipline matters. He found that the employee's procedural rights are violated and that the breach nullified the removal. He reasoned, implicit in the language of Article 16.6 is the requirement that a supervisor or a postmaster in a small installation make a recommendation or decision as to the imposition of discipline before referring the matter for concurrence to higher authority. It follows that the decision to impose discipline or the nature of the discipline may not be initiated, as in this particular case, outside the installation by higher authority. Does that sound familiar? As outlined above, the postmaster made no recommendation and no decision with respect to discipline and grievance. He merely concurred in the termination decision after it came down from the Lancaster MCS. Failure to carry out his responsibilities under the national agreement rendered the postmaster's issue of the notice removal a nullity. And so there you go again. Anything we can show where the supervisor's authority was taken away, where this discipline was initiated or mandated by someone other than the supervisor, outside of the station, by district, by area, by labor, we're going to win that case. Here's the last one. It's C32856, 32856, and it's Thomas Levac. And my brother James Henry was the advocate. And it talks about Hing's role in the case. Hing testified that it was his decision, after consulting with labor relations, to issue the notice of removal. The arbitrator finds for the following reasons that Hing was not a credible witness and that McDonald played the central role in issuing the notice. First, this was Hing's first removal case, so it is highly unlikely that he did not take some direction from McDonald. Second, Lakewood shop steward Jacqueline Haney credibly testified that after the notice issued, she interviewed Hing, and he told her that he did not know what the charges were, that he did not know what the notice said, that he did not know what the evidence was, that he only read a part of the OIG report, and later said that he did not know what there had been such a report, and that he did not know what the term TTD meant. Third, Hing testified first that he only skimmed the notice, but later claimed that he actually read it all and used the word skimmed because of a language barrier. The arbitrator noted that Hing showed no difficulty in expressing himself or understanding questions, and Haney testified he in fact had no barrier. Fourth, in her formal position statement, McDonald confirms that after till it left the installation. She finalized notice came back from labor relations and that the review and concur had already been completed. The issuing supervisor, Hing, was apprised and concurred with the action. In sum, all the persuasive and convincing evidence established that Hing simply rubber-stamped a decision made by others. And that's what we're talking about here. Upper management, labor, district, area. They're telling local management, put them on EP and remove them. The local supervisor, all they're doing is rubber stamping that decision. It goes on page 7. This brings us to the independent grounds for sustaining the grievance. It was absolutely clear that Hing did not make the decision to issue the notice of removal. The persuasive and convincing evidence established that it was a command decision made by higher authority. Indeed, that evidence established that Hing had nothing at all to do with the decision. So there's you some fantastic cites. Print them all out, put them in your case file. I do. And make contentions as such, right? You're going to come after us. We're going to educate ourselves and we're going to beat the shit out of it, okay? They are weaponizing everything they can against us right now. These teams that are going out since December. We had no idea. Our president, he never told us a thing. Never told us a thing. To me, you got this podcast. Why don't you get on there and start updating people? Hey, look, I got this memo. Y'all need to start looking out for shit. Be careful. That never happened. He never said a thing. Now you got these telematics they put in our vehicles. Now they're beating the shit out of us with that. Nothing from National. Nothing from our president. I've got issues with what we're doing right now. Somebody sent me this, and this is another thing that chaps my ass, and I'm going to get on Barner a little bit because he's worthless as fuck. This is what it says. Now, Lloyd, has pimped Barner out. Going around, we're not going to do cease and desist. These pre-arb sessions with this shitty-ass language about shall comply, will fully comply. Got one sent to me the other day. Will fully comply with Article 17. Will fully comply with... That's the worst shit. Let me tell you. On day one, that shit's over with. We're not doing that anymore. I will be in a position, trust me, I will end that. I will end that shit day one. If I see a pre-arb from an RAA will fully comply, I will send them back to carrying mail. I will do that. If I've got B teams that are saying will fully comply, I will replace them with somebody else. I will have that done. We are going to be militant and aggressive. We're going on the offensive. You're going to talk about these dogs of war teams, unprecedented. And I'm sure I'll talk about that with this podcast. I'm not going to get too much into it now, but there's a new day dawning for the NALC. We're going back on the offensive. We're going to be the alphas again. We are not right now, especially with Barner's clown ass, what he's doing. Somebody sent me this. It was a Step B training recently. James Lloyd said there would be no more Step B teams activated. He said he would blow up the whole process before adding more teams. Now here's a guy telling this group of people at Step B training that he will blow up the whole process before adding more teams. Now this motherfucker has beaten Barner so bad, he's got a God complex. He thinks that he's going to rewrite Article 15. That's what he's saying. I'm going to do away with Article 15 because I am God, because your executive vice president is now my bitch. And so he's getting in front of people saying he said he would blow up the whole process before adding more teams. Barner offered no pushback on that statement. Their plan is to get people better trained at the informal and formal level to get grievances settled without setting it up. That will never happen. Why? Because they will never educate their own. If you don't think cease and desist, 100 of those is educating them, they don't care. They don't give a fuck about the contract. Lloyd don't give a fuck about the contract. You're going to talk about educating the informal and formal level to get grievances settled, but yet you're going to say that you're going to blow up the whole process? What does that mean? And what's Barner doing? Where in the fuck is he at? What's happened to him? That is beyond bizarre. I'll tell you this. If I'm in a meeting with Lloyd and we're at step B meeting training, and he says, I'll blow up the whole process. Hold up right there. All my people get up and get out. All my people get up right now. Get up. Go on, get up. Walk out. We're done. You will never say some crazy ass shit like that in front of my people. You want to tell your people that? Fine. You're not going to come in here and say, no more cease and desist. You are weaponizing that. Hold up. What'd you just say? No more cease and desist or weaponizing. All my people in it, get up. Get the fuck up. Let's go. That's what's going to happen. That will happen. You will never have anybody message you stating, man, Corey just sat there and didn't say shit. Lloyd came in and told us all he's going to blow up the system and he's going to blow up Article 15 and told us that no more cease and desist because we're weaponizing it. What'd Corey do? Man, he didn't do shit. He just said, you will never hear that. You wouldn't. Brother, let me tell you, I'm the alpha in that room. I am the alpha in that motherfucker when I go in there. We're there for one reason only, the city letter carrier. And if you got somebody saying some dumbass shit like that, my people are getting up and getting the fuck out. They are weaponizing every single thing they can with these telematics. You got these dumbasses at headquarters sending down these things with these teams coming out on us. They're weaponizing everything. Now you got these telematics things saying, hey, look, this telematics is showing that the percentage of the time they're not having their seatbelt on, so put them on emergency placement. Well, first off, fuck, how's that immediate? You didn't see me doing anything. It's not immediate and it's not emergency. And remove them. How is that not weaponizing stuff? And you got a clown in Barner in a meeting with a guy from the enemy, the foe, saying, I'll blow the whole thing up. You're not going to blow up shit here, bitch. Hey, y'all, let's get it. Let's go. We're going to lunch. You can stay in here with these motherfuckers here. We're gone. Let's go. God, man. What in the fuck has happened to us? What in the fuck is that? Could you imagine having somebody, our executive vice president? I'm going to have to run against him. Hey, this shit here, yeah. Oh well, it'll be an interesting week. We're gonna start some shit this week. All right, maybe by the end of the week, some shit's gonna come out. There's a new day dawning on the NLC, man. There's a new day dawning on the NLC. We're fixing to have some fun in this motherfucker, man. I'm telling you, we are fixing to have some fun in this motherfucker here. We're going to ransack shit come next year. Shit. I hate it because I'm wishing my days away. It can't get here fast enough. We're ransacking shit. Mark my words. We're ransacking shit. All right. 1 hour of reading. Fuck. It's late. I could just stop it right there. That's an hour. And look, next Sunday, what I'm going to have is Mallory is going to record the episode, okay? And then on Wednesday, she's going to record that and she'll put that up for me. I'll be gone the next 2 weeks. And so she'll put that up for me next Sunday. And I don't know if I'll have anything the next Sunday. I'll try to do one. I'll tell you what, this is what I'm going to do. Because it's already late. I'm going to have to edit this. It's already an hour. It'll be midnight before I get to bed. And so what I'm going to do is she'll put that up Wednesday. But y'all still get on there. And ask me questions, right? Whatever you want to ask. That'll be a fun time. We'll do that. That'll be a good time. she'll record that. She'll put that up next Sunday for those of you who couldn't get on there, so you can listen to that. When I get back, it won't be that next Sunday, probably be that next Tuesday. I'll read an hour, okay? That's what we'll do because it's so late and I didn't realize it's going to take that long to do this episode. But that's what we'll do, okay? So I apologize for going so late on that. But the telematics is the most important thing going on right now because they've gone fucking crazy with that shit. And so that's what we'll do, okay? I'll stop it right there. And then, again, Wednesday, get on that. Next Generation Carriers podcast. I'll be on there answering questions. Mallory will tape that. She'll put that up as an episode next Sunday. And then the next Tuesday after, I'll be back in town, and then I'll read for an hour, okay? And we'll continue on with 6-day counts, all right? Y'all have a fantastic rest of the week. Hopefully I'll see y'all on there Wednesday, and we'll have some fun with that. That should get spicy maybe, hopefully. And so I'm always ready to talk shit. And, man, we're going to get this thing turned around. I promise you that. It's coming. It's coming. I promise you we're going to get this thing turned around. I will not leave it like it is right now. We will be the alphas again. We will be the alphas again. I'm contacting the smartest individuals I know, the brightest minds I know, asking to be a part of this, and they're agreeing to it. Okay? They understand the position that we're in right now. Renfro's lost. He's done. People are jumping ship on his ass like crazy. I don't know what the ticket's going to look like he's putting together. It doesn't matter. I mean, they're all going to lose their ass. But he knows he's done. They know he's done. We know he's done, right? The CLC is going to take over, and we're going to run roughshod on management, right? We're going to turn this thing back around for the city letter carrier. That's a promise from me to you. And I can't wait. I cannot wait. But I've been contacting the brightest minds I know. Any position I'm in, I want people much smarter than me to be with me. And then we're going to get it the fuck on, man. I am blunt force trauma. That's exactly what I am. And that's exactly what I'm going to be. As soon as I take over, blunt force trauma. And we're going to get the city letter carriers back right. The workroom floor is going to be ours again. We're going to get that back right. Backlog of grievances, we're going to take care of that. I've already got people in position on that. These non-compliances, we're going to take care of that. I already got people over that. James Henry's told me what to do, and that's exactly what's going to fucking happen. I've already got people in place for every single thing. And so, yeah, I mean, that's how you fucking do it. I don't consider management. I'll work with them. You got to, we'll talk and shit. That bullshit right there, though, coming in there talking shit to my people, no, baby, you're going to respect my people, and you're going to respect that contract. Coming in here saying you're going to blow up some shit, fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Like I said, let's get it. Let's go. We're going to lunch, man. You talk crazy to your people, but you're not going to talk crazy to mine, right? Anyway, y'all have a fantastic rest of the week. I'll talk to you Wednesday, hopefully. If not, she'll put that up next Wednesday. I'll be traveling. I love each and every one of you, man. I love the city letter carrier with all my heart. I cannot wait to get in there and wreak some havoc for y'all. I love you. I have a passion for the city letter carrier like nobody else in this country. I do. I'm mad dog crazy in love with y'all. And so we're going to get this motherfucker back right, okay? I'll talk to y'all later. Y'all have a fantastic week. Bye.